going on, everybody? Mutty88, aka AJ from Queens, and I wanted to discuss with you today, live from my car, as I shut the engine off because it'll be way too loud. Now I'm like boiling in here like a freaking Boston market chicken. I wanted to talk to you about video game adaptations and the two series that have completely saved it. As you, I'm sure, are aware, no one's really kind of done the adaptation from video game to either film or TV show any justice. I mean, going all the way back to that the Super Mario movie back in the day, as classic as it is, you know it's garbage. To Resident Evil, to Halo, to what they did to The Witcher. And The Witcher Season 1 had potential until the rest of the series happened. It all sucks. It's all terrible. It was really looking bleak. Until they announced that they were adapting The Last of Us. And spoiler alert, I'm a big Last of Us fan. Part 1 is amazing. It changed my life. Part 2 made me an emotional wreck and still affects me to this day. And they did it justice. Now we'll see whether they're able to continue that success into Season 2, but there's no denying it. Season 1 was an absolute bomb, in a good way. What I thought was really interesting is that immediately following that, in the next year, Fallout happened, and it's good. They've done a fantastic job translating an open world game where there's no main character. They kind of have to make it up because you know how Fallout is. Player created, RPG, all that stuff. They've done a fantastic job kind of like splitting the main character into 3. That way you could kind of understand the vastness of the world and how important all these different factions and characters and creatures are to the world of Fallout. So someone out there said the right prayer to the video game gods because it is working. And I have a feeling that it's going to continue along that route. We shall see with future IPs that are going to be adapted. But if everything shapes out the way that I think it's going to shape out, I think we're in for a new generation, a new era of video game films and TV shows that are going to absolutely blow us away. And let me explain to you why. It's no surprise and not some big secret that video game adaptations haven't really been knocking it out of the park lately. I mean, the Halo series alone was enough to make me not even want to play the game, which is a shame considering its place in the gaming pantheon of most loved franchises. I remember 2 videos in particular by Penguin Zero and Critical Drinker that really dunked on the series to the point where I literally had to watch it and see it to believe it. Now, granted, I've never played Halo, and honestly, when it came out, Halo was all the craze, but I was too glued to my PS2 playing GTA 3, and there was something more real and cool about jacking cars and working for the mob that made Halo just seem just too childish for me. Childish, I was like 10 at the time. But be that as it may, right? I gave the show a chance not too long ago, and it sucked. I mean, it was awful. God awful. I mean, even from a non-player perspective in my eyes, I can only imagine how the Halo mega fans must have felt. I mean, sheesh. So when HBO announced that they were adapting a game that not only I love, but hold in my heart as the best video game I've ever played, point blank, I was petrified. I mean, is this going to work for non-lovers of The Last of Us? Is it going to work for fans? Is it going to be just non-stop fan service while sacrificing such critical elements such as well-thought-out written plots and deep character development? Or are they going to steer far away from the game to the point that it might as well be called something entirely different? I needed something to de-stress and fast. However, when more and more tweets came out showing the on-the-set shots of Joel and Ellie depicted by Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, I started to ease on my frustrations. I remember this one shot of Bella, Pedro, and Callus, the horse, riding to the university, and I thought, holy moly, that looks just like the game. Now, all the writers have to do is stick to the script, and we actually may have something here. And then, much to my joy, the trailer dropped, and it got me stoked. Pedro, who I initially thought was a strange choice for Joel Miller, definitely embodied that hardened, rough, southern badass with a chip on his shoulder type of vibe. And the little I saw of Bella Ramsey was not totally convincing just yet, but The clothing and the settings around her was enough to make the hairs on the back of my neck stand. Couple that with the picture-perfect post-zombie apocalypse aesthetic going on, with the foliage overtaking the urban environment and networks of fungal strands plastered everywhere, and I was just sold, at least for now. Well, needless to say, I needed to see the final product. So when episode 1 dropped, as I sat watching it at my buddy Frank's house, my jaw sunk to the ground in disbelief. They portrayed the opening scenes with genuine appreciation for the game and creative adjustments, breathing even more life to one of the most iconic introductions in gaming history. And that, my friends, is what I like to call the Goldilocks Method to film adaptations. It goes a little something like this. You see, service fans too much and the casual viewers will feel left out. Single the casual viewers too much and the fans will feel insulted and abandoned by the writers. There's a middle ground here that must be reached in order to have both sides equally enjoy the material. Take the first episode of Last of Us, for example. If you've ever played the game, then you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say this is literally the perfect setup introduction to any game ever. And what makes it shocking is the fact that your first-person player right off the bat isn't any of the two characters on the front title screen, but rather Sarah, the daughter of our protagonist. As she awakens to that peculiar call from Uncle Tommy and scours the house for clues as to what's going on, the tension slowly builds to an alarming situation. When an explosion simultaneously goes off on the TV and the background through the window, it's clear that this isn't going to be a normal evening. The game really makes you feel for Sarah and does this building of suspense so well to the point where you feel genuine grief for Joel when the unthinkable eventually happens. However, as a writer of the series, do you go right from the script to start off the show, or do you somehow disband a little bit and get a little creative? Well, yes to both, but not before building more rapport with our girl Sarah first. You see, instead of opening with her and Joel watching TV and then that quick 5-minute walkthrough of the house with Sarah, we get to spend the whole day with her, from waking up to breakfast to school and her way home. By doing this, the show attempts to extract not only how fast everything went to pure shit on a stick, but how normal life was before the outbreak changed the entire course of human history. We'll almost immediately introduce the temporary side characters, like their neighbors, your quintessential Texas family called the Adlers, equipped with biscuits, Jesus, and the whole 9 Lone Star yards. I swear the only thing that was missing was them talking about Friday Night Lights. We get to see a little bit more into Sarah's love for her father by physically going with her to the watch store to fix his timepiece, and we even get a little bit more into Joel's relationship with his brother Uncle Tommy. You see, this is what film allows us to accomplish, since the action scenes in the game don't need to be nearly as elaborate or time-consuming. Instead, this time gets substituted wisely by fleshing out deeper meanings that the game only hints at, such as the news on the radio informing us of some kind of incident taking place in Jakarta, Indonesia, or that the Millers luckily don't consume any bread or bread products in the morning, ultimately aiding in their avoidance of the fungal infection. From here on out, the game takes an almost exact play-by-play recreation of their attempted escape, from the burning barn to the chaos overtaking the townspeople, and all of this culminates into the same ending of Outbreak Day as the game does, which hits as equally hard as your first playthrough of the game. That is how it's done, people, staying true to the game while enhancing the plot and characters using space within the stories competently. Again, the Goldilocks method. It works. The series continues this trend quite well by incorporating extended insights into characters such as Bill and Frank, Henry and Sam, David and James, Riley, Maria, and our favorite badass shitty person, Tess, while also introducing us to new complementary characters such as Kathleen and Perry, the leader of the head militant of the Kansas City Rebellion. HBO does all this while staying as tight to the game as possible for a film narrative, and it just worked. Each iconic scene from the show landed just as emotionally hard as the PlayStation original did, be it Henry and Sam's death, Joel reunited with Tommy, Ellie escaping David's creepy clutches, and yes, even the hospital scene. Part of why this works is due to the writers adding extra depth to the main characters. For example, Joel in the game has this 80-story tall wall built around his emotions. Even when he opens up to Ellie in the spring section of the game, he remains reserved and determined to protect Ellie with his entire life. Joel in the show, however, has a certain level of vulnerability to his character that leads you to believe that he's on the decline from his prime. He constantly suffers from panic attacks, Tony Soprano style, and doesn't hold back from opening up when the time is right, such as when Ellie saves Joel from that KC Raider. In the game, Joel immediately berates Ellie for disobeying his orders to stay back, as her actions could have gotten her killed. Whereas Joel in the show recognizes that he ain't no spring chicken anymore, and that he shouldn't have put her in that position. And then he apologizes. That's a big shift in character from the game, but it doesn't shift the character too much to the point where he's extremely unrecognizable. It's a slight personality change that gives us a more realistic and less cartoonish, gamey vibe to Joel and the situation at hand. And to that, I dig it. The bottom line here is that the formula worked, and now with Season 2 on the way, with shooting taking place in Vancouver as of today, viewers and fans of the game and show alike are waiting with bated breath for the next installment of the series. Now that is how you turn around the video game curse in the film industry. Luckily for us, a tiny, small, teensy little studio named Amazon all the while was taking notes of this and recently came across the rights for another beloved IP, Fallout. And boy, oh boy, are we glad they did, because fortunately for us, the trend of serving both the fans and casual viewers alike continued with our next adaptation to immense success. Now, Fallout was in for a bit of a trickier adaptation, as the game is an open world and stems from about 5 main games, or 8, depending on if you're counting the spin-offs or not. Therefore, this wasn't going to be as simple of a task. However, there is a general theme that can be accomplished if done right, given the hours upon hours of lore offered by the IP, and the team at Amazon did a great job presenting the world of Fallout in the perfect light. For instance, the entire aesthetic of the game is almost too good. I mean, they really capture that 60s Americana vibe, coupled with the fictional unexpected boom in technology, resulting in very Twilight Zone-y electronics. And all of such technology is depicted in the game, such as the giant circular TVs, the clunky computers, the Land of the Lost style robots, and cheesy Austin Powers-esque silver uniforms. Well, they're not silver, but you get it. It's all so cliche, but then again, that's the point. The show does exactly what the game does, in that it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's a ridiculous concept when you think about it, and it allows us viewers to simply enjoy the fantasy rather than meticulously pointing out improbable inaccuracies. Instead, the show elects for the same go-with-the-flow mentality that makes the game so enjoyable, and it certainly translates to the screen. The showrunners and writers also had a tough task as to the characters, as the game doesn't exactly have a main person as the focal point. It's a player-created character, so the show did exactly just that by creating that exact type of character you would at the beginning of the game in Lucy, or Jackie from Yellow Jackets as I call it. Which I can only imagine is the writers hinting at our beloved 60s comedy I Love Lucy, which is just chef's kiss. But that wouldn't be the only headliner in the show. Instead, the writers elect to go down a 3 main character route in order to expand the story across the vast landscape that is Fallout. Walton Goggins plays the Ghoul and gives us an insight into those who survived the Big Blast only to suffer genetic mutations and even mindless animalistic tendencies. Our Ghoul, however, keeps his mind sharp by using a daily serum that allows him to stay on the level as the Wasteland's most dangerous bounty hunter. And defending the Wasteland, of course, is the honorable, in quotations, Brotherhood of Steel, depicted by third and last main character, Maximus. You see, each character embodies the aura of Fallout in their own unique way, to the point where all 3 cover the majority of the game's main focal points. The naive to the outside world vault dweller, the gunslinging morally questionable bounty hunter, and the law-enforcing unbreakable bond of a member of the Brotherhood of Steel. Pick a Fallout game at random and you'll land on at least one of these types of characters at some point. So splitting the protagonists in 3 was the de facto way of telling the story. And honestly, in my mind, It's totally the way they should adapt the Elder Scrolls if they ever put that into an adaptation. I mean, HBO, give me a call. I have a whole script revolving around a Mage Khajiit, a Stormcloak Dragonborn, and a Dark Brotherhood assassin that you'll absolutely love. But getting back on track, I'll leave my number in the comment. With our main players in place, all we needed to do now was come up with a competent plot circling around all three. But how would they ever come up with this one? Do they go the route of Fallout 4 and write up a missing persons adventure as a vault-dwelling average Joe tasked with venting into the wasteland in search of fighting for an organization known as the Enclave, like in Fallout 3, or maybe a prophetized Chosen One style hero dynamic such as the case is Fallout 2? How about a little bit of everything sprinkled into what essentially revolves around your standard fetch quest? And the writers did just that. We follow Lucy, tasked with finding her father in the wasteland after a group of raiders kidnap him, the Ghoul, violently scouring the land for his latest bounty, and Maximus, out on a mission to find an escaped researcher while squiring for his knight protege, and it all works out just so perfectly. Sometimes the show is even shot in the gameplay manner depicted during the slow-motion gunfight that encapsulates the fun, gamey nature of the VATS combat system. And the armor worn by the Brotherhood is absolutely ripped straight from the game. But it's not just all fan service here. Walter Goggins plays his heart out in the series as flashbacks between the before and after of the Big Boom shows a morally complex character dealing with his washed up fame while trying to turn a blind eye to the corruption taking place with his wife's employer, until curiosity gets the best of him, of course. The stark contrast between a man hoping to live a quiet, happy life with his family and the shell of himself as a ruthless, dark murderer in the future is something most past video game adaptations have failed to capture in spades. Lucy transforms from naive, scared, and innocent to bold, inquisitive, and resourceful. It's quite the sight to see, and the same could be said for Maximus, someone clearly hiding a big secret from those he calls his brothers. Every single 9 of the episodes are a clear upgrade from the utter trash that came before it, and honestly, I don't know if we'd have gotten this if it weren't for The Last of Us' success story. It also doesn't hurt that the series was directed by Lisa Joy and the great Jonathan Nolan, someone who's had his fingers in the Wild West scene way before back with his work on Westworld. Thank God he brought a Season 1A game and not, the rest of the series. But regardless, the bottom line is that we finally see what happens when competent writers and actors give a creative twist on a beloved franchise while staying loyal to the source material. And I don't think this will end here. As a lover of gaming, there are a plethora of IPs studios could snatch up and make a huge killing on while satisfying a fan base dying to see what their games would be in live action. Unfortunately, games like The Witcher and Resident Evil have been attempted and failed miserably. But what about some untouched material just begging for the silver or small screen? To name a few, how cool would it be to see Ghost of Tsushima be put to screen? Or how about God of War or Red Dead Redemption? Now, I already spewed out my interest in seeing my beloved Elder Scrolls adapted to a series, but how about the high fantasy video game, Zelda? These are things audiences would salivate for, and the Krabby Patty's secret formula for creating them has finally been revealed. So maybe it's time that we dust off the shelf and give these fans something that they'll watch over and over and over again. Now, can they please expedite The Last of Us Season 2 already? I'm dying over here, but that's all I have to say about that. As always, thank you for clicking on the video, and if you watch to the end, you have my deepest sympathy. I'm just fucking with you. Thank you so much, guys. I really do appreciate it. I do this for you guys, and if you have any questions, please comment at the bottom of the video, like, share, subscribe it. Did you enjoy the Fallout series or The Last of Us? I know a lot of people had their gripes with both of them. Bella Ramsey not being the best choice as Ellie. People having issues with Maximus as an interesting character in Fallout. I mean, you let me know what you think. I personally thought that there were 2 great series and that we're on the right track, but do you think that we're on the right track? Does there still work to be done? Let me know down in the comment section. Again, it's your buddy Mutty, AJ from Queens, back at you with another video. Till next time. Peace.